Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Manufacturers in Nigeria expressed no confidence in the economy in the month of August. What happened and how are they ensuring that they stay afloat in terms of producing some of the items that are consumed in Nigeria? We'll get to find out from someone who is the president of Small and Medium Enterprises of Nigeria. But before we bring him in and look at how the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises are doing in Nigeria, some of them are manufacturers, regardless of the size or the scale of their operations. Some of them are manufacturers, and how are they coping? What exactly in Nigerian economy made them lose confidence? Is there a way to restore that confidence? How does it impact the entire economy at the end of the day? TC is a consumer, even though he is a broadcast journalist. But of course, he and I are also consumers.
I didn't see that coming.
We didn't see that coming because we have to know, or even before we came on set, we had to buy one or two things produced in Nigeria. And after now, we still buy some other things produced in Nigeria. So if manufacturers are saying that they have no confidence in the economy, what does that say? Did he say that for the month of August?
Well, just to start off, so yesterday, you know how busy the Obalende roundabout is. I had this palpable fear that there was some sort of upheaval or something that was happening because, you know, how they say in the local parlance, the area was dry. We had no vehicular movement. You didn't have passers-by. You didn't have bystanders. I mean, it just felt like it was a public holiday. Yeah, or something was happening.
Something had gone wrong.
So I was just very careful. Yes, there's a police station close by, the Marine Police Post. So I was looking at it to ensure that they had police officers around. You know, that was just me. So it felt like I was just tensed unnecessarily. But then today felt different. You know, so even though I came in, maybe I got to that roundabout about after 8, it wasn't so early, you know. So why would you have that place completely without people? So the point I'm trying to make is I've realized that fuel stations, despite the fact that the petrol, it's now 897, between 800 and 897, you know, depending on where you're buying from, you don't have those queues anymore. You don't have people using their cars as frequently as they do. You don't have people expending so much energy. There's a particular business, someone had mentioned that's worst hit by the increase in price of petrol. And that's business of people who charge phones, mobile phones. And so probably because of the epileptic power supply that we have, people now have to go to vendors or people who provide that service. And those persons, it's not like they have constant power supply. What they do is they get a small power generating set and they buy full petrol and they start off and they run for hours and you plug your phone and you pay maybe 100 or 200 naira depending, you know. So those guys people have analyzed that those guys are worst hit, right? So how does someone who is into that kind of business survive, especially in this current dispensation?
So I agree with what you said, that there seems to be a decline in economic activities in areas that are known to be highly commercial.
The purchasing power has also reduced.
Yes, areas that are known to be highly commercial, having just very few commercial activity happening. Imagine the Obalende roundabout, for instance, which you talked about. That's a very busy area where you find lots of buying and selling, movement of people there. So at any time you find a place is not as busy as it should be, and it's not a public holiday, it raises questions as to what's happening. Am I safe? So I understand Temple's fear at the moment. But the thing is, as you've mentioned, the buying power of many have diminished because there's a high inflation. So if the buying power of many have diminished, it's not only for the buyers, for the manufacturers who would need to get raw materials, who would need to get other things that they would assemble to get their products. That means that the buying power too for them has reduce. So what they can afford to produce is dropped. At the end of the day, it means the output is also reduced. Some of them have very serious issues with energy, which is very expensive. Imagine that you have to fuel your operation and you have to maybe stay several hours for you to produce at the end of the day. These are some of the issues. But for others and how they are coping, let's get to meet our guest who will be telling us all about it. Why manufacturers express no confidence in Nigeria's economy for August 2024. Dr. Femi Egbesola, who is the president, Association of Small Business Owners in Nigeria, ASBON. Some of the small business owners, I need to remind you, are manufacturers. Good morning, Dr. Femi Egbesola. Good to see you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right, so the plight of manufacturers straight away, because I'm guessing that you really are ready to talk about it, and also tell us ways that you've come up to cope with the economic challenges. Can we know what the plight of business owners, manufacturers, or distributors are in Nigeria currently?
Well, it's in a very bad shape. The economy is not friendly at all. Ease of doing business has gone down even beyond the borderline. We are all struggling to survive. I must say that quite a number of our members are manufacturers. We have about 16 different business sectors in the association. One of the major sectors is the manufacturing sector, and they are complaining. The players are complaining bitterly. We are faced with avalanche of challenges, so many of them. The first is that foreign direct investments is no longer coming in because the confidence of the investor is already eroded. They don't want to play with their money again with us, particularly because the volatility of the exchange rate. They are not too sure of what the exchange rate will be in the next minute or in the next moment. Again, also the interest rate is something to talk about. The interest rate continues to gallop. At every MPR meeting of CBN, they jack up the interest rate. And today is another sitting of the CBN. We are expecting again that the interest rate will also go up again. And that will also be another big challenge for us. And when you talk of interest rates, their intention, according to CBN, is to fight inflation. But unfortunately, inflation is not coming down. Yes, we're able to see some form of disinflation, some stability in the last 2 or 3 months. But for us in the manufacturing sector or in the real sector, we are not seeing the disinflation or slowdown of inflation that CBN or NBS is talking about. And that to us is a big issue. Again, to the issue of electricity, you see that electricity tariff has gone up beyond the roof, beyond the ability of quite a number of business owners in Nigeria. And from the feelers we are hearing, it is going to go up the more. We hear that it is still somehow being subsidized by government, and government want to reduce it to zero subsidy. That means it will go up. And that is also pushing up cost of doing business, cost of goods and commodities in the market. We have the issue of taxes too. Taxes is coming up every day. Government is finding newer ways of hiding taxes. The existing taxes are being jacked up. When you go to one regulatory body or the other to get certification, you see that the price change almost every other time. Then you begin to wonder if government did say that they are fighting prices of commodities in the market up to the point of trying to even arrest market women. Then government begins to also jack up their price of all the commodities and services they offer to Nigerians and business owners, from electricity to petrol to taxes and all of that. Petrol is also another major driver now of inflation because it has naturally increased the cost of doing business. And you know the purchasing power of these Nigerians are reducing by the day. Their disposable income has reduced, meaning that they can buy less. And that's why we have our warehouses filled up with products now, nowhere to take them to, nowhere, because the citizens do not have the power, the purchasing power to buy it. And it's unfortunate that all of this is coming up at the same time. I'm sure you are aware of the new tax that is going to be reintroduced. The cybercrime tax again is another form of tax. The committee, the Federal Presidential Committee on Fiscal Reform and Tax Regulations, came up with so many laudable initiative recommendations, but till today, quite a number of these recommendations has not been approved. Perhaps this will have also given us some form of soft landing and some cushioning if it is there. We also have the issue of regulatory issues. We have a lot of inconsistent government policies and regulation irregularities, and all of these are pushing business down. You did ask me, what's the initiative that we are embarking on now to survive? We have decided to divide the line on what we have control over and what we do not have control over. Governments and government policies and their doings, we do not really have much control over that. But we have control over what we can do for ourselves to help ourselves. So for us, firstly, we are now looking at export. We are looking at how we can begin to export our products to other countries, both Africa and intercontinental climes, so that we can have more market. We want to have more access to market. We also believe that by the time we begin to export, the export market will be able to absorb the higher price that our product now goes for in the market and still be competitive in the sense that because our naira is falling so badly, it becomes very cheap in the global market. So it becomes a choice for most of the consumers or buyers in the international market because it is cheaper. We are also trying to become more innovative in the sense that we now look at how we can break down our packaging into smaller sizes, cheaper sizes, so that everybody can afford it. So some of us who do 20 kg, 5 kg, we're now looking at doing 1 kg or even half kg so that it can be affordable. We're also looking at how to rebrand our products to make it more attractive to be able to compete with the imported ones that are coming into the country. We are looking at how to adopt technology the more in the business we do. One of the ways we adopt technology now is to see how we can reduce transportation costs. Instead of taking our trucks to drive around the road, looking for customers or making supplies, we look at how to combine many orders together and look for logistic companies that will deliver it on our behalf instead of going through that route, doing everything by ourselves. We're also looking at collaboration. Many businesses are collapsing themselves to become one. 2, 3 businesses are coming together to become one business and put all resources together so that they can function better. So we're also looking at collaboration by collapsing our companies to become one. And for those who are not collapsing their companies, we are outsourcing quite a number of production value chain so that others too can come in, take part of it, and use their fund to get it done. We're also having issues with access to funding. Access to funding has been very, very difficult because the interest rates did go up every time, like I did mention the other time. So to cushion that, we're also looking at international funders that can also support us. So we are getting loans now from some international organizations that give us single-digit interest rates, more liberal terms and conditions, and longer tenure for payment. These are some of the things we are doing to just have our head above the water.
All right. So you've talked about a lot, but then particularly you mentioned various policies that we've engaged in. And I'd like to know, we have a foreign exchange policy, and that's hinged on the purchase of commodities, importation with the dollar. How has this affected the manufacturing sector or industry?
I did not get that right. Please, can you take that again?
So how has our foreign exchange policy as a country, Nigeria, affected the manufacturing sector?
Yes, it has affected us very negatively, very, very negatively. The policy of the floating of the naira has done to the manufacturing sector more harm than good. Yes, it has its own good side. We also believe that in the long run, in the long term, it's going to have a lot of benefits for us. But at the immediate, in the short term, we are adversely affected. Adversely affected in the sense that it's difficult now to bring in input, which are raw materials that we naturally import. And again, we do not have the resources to bring in as much as we do before. You can imagine when a dollar was to 700 naira, and now that it's about 1,700, meaning that if you are using the same naira volume to do that import, you are going to bring in less than half of what you used to bring in before. That has always been challenging. And like I also mentioned, because of the instability of the foreign exchange, investors are not ready to put down their money for us because they are not too sure of how much they will get at the end of the exercise, because it's unpredictable. Because of the foreign exchange also of volatility, we cannot also project. We cannot project towards the future because you never can tell what the foreign exchange will be in future. And it's also becoming difficult to get foreign exchange from the regular market, which is the banks, because many of those who have the dollars or the pounds or other currency prefer to take it down to the black market, which is more competitive, more profitable than taking it to the bank. So you see the bank struggling again and again to have FX to sell for us. And when you now go through the FX process, it takes so longer time for us to be able to access FX and to access it in the quantity of volume that we really want. That has been a big challenge to us in the manufacturing sector. We are thinking that it would have been fine if government can look at how to begin to liberalize that sector, that FS sector. One way this can be done really is to ensure that certain amount is a mark for SMEs. You see that the larger corporation and the small business owners go to the same bank, compete together to get FX with the same policy. That does not work. If you want to encourage the SMEs to grow, who are really the driver of the economy, who employs about 86% of the workforce, who owns about 92% of the entire businesses, you should be strategic about supporting them. Supporting them will mean that you want to mark a certain percentage of the available FX to that sector. So if, for example, we have 100% of a certain amount today, maybe 20% or 30% should be marked by a policy to address the FX need of the SMEs. So SMEs will know that whenever they go to the bank, they don't really need to compete with the likes of MTN, with the likes of Dangote, with the likes of others that are very big and most time mop up all the FX in the market. There's also this policy that has to do with your inability to repatriate your entire fund in some sector of the economy now by the CBN policy. So if you make maybe $2 million, the policy says that you can only expatriate $1 million at a time. And foreign investors want to have their money as when due and as they want it. So when you have a policy where an investor brings in certain amount of dollar into your business or into your organization, and there is a policy that says he cannot have it as at when he wants it, it becomes discouraging to those investors to bring in their fund. These are some of the things we are contending with. And I must tell you, it is really, really working against few people who have this dollar taking it to the banks. They like to do round trip it. They like to do other form of businesses with it. That is not really helping our economy and helping the manufacturing sector.
All right, looking again at the manufacturing sector. Now, the report which showed that manufacturers expressed no confidence in Nigeria's economy in August was the Business Expectation Survey done by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So after surveying about 1,600 businesses in Nigeria for the month of August, it came to that conclusion. But there were other sectors and subsectors that were optimistic, even as the manufacturing sector was pessimistic. So for the quarrying and mining subsector, they were optimistic. For the agriculture sector, they were optimistic. But for manufacturing, they were pessimistic. It seemed like there are some challenges peculiar to the manufacturing sector. You pointed to some of them while you were talking earlier, trying to repackage your goods or your products to compete favorably with those that are made outside of this country. Are there certain policies at this point in time that will need to be made to help manufacturers in Nigeria, apart from the Forex policy and maybe some tax relief for manufacturers?
Yes, we really need a lot of policy reform, policy rejig here in Nigeria if we really want manufacturers to be competitive and be able to scale up and grow. You will look at the past 5, 10, 15 years, you'll find that it is very, very rare to see a small business migrating to a medium-sized business and to a large business becoming the Dangotes, the Unilever, all of that. And it is because the environment, the business environment has not been conducive. The first thing government needs to do is to really work on ease of doing business. We are falling in the ease of doing business index, and it means that something is wrong somewhere along the line that government needs to begin to look at. I believe that there's a lot of policy mismatch that we have and inconsistent policies where we have in the system that the government really needs to look at. And one of the best way to look at it is to engage critical stakeholders. Most times, governments and their economists sit in the office, make policies without having this handshake and the contribution of those in the real sectors, those that are the real actors, the stakeholders. So for government to get it right, there's a need for government to invite the critical stakeholders to policy making. If I want to make it as a government policy in agriculture, be it in agriculture itself or its value chain, I must bring in those who are in that business, who are the critical stakeholders in the agriculture and agricultural value chain, get that input. That's the only way to get policy right. But that has not always been the issue here. You see many of the government ministries, departments, and agencies overlapping each other with the same issue. You get to one place, you have to get a particular document, and which is more or less related to what you have to get in the other department or agency also, with a lot of money and time consuming. The processes are always hidden. You don't have it straight. You look at their website, they tell you it's good, your certificate, perhaps your NAFDAC certificate, for example, will be ready in 30 or 60 days. You go to the process in 120 days, you've not had it. You look at their website, they tell you the cost will be 60,000. When you go into the process, you discover you're spending close to $1 million or more than that. These are things that needs to be addressed. Well, for us to encourage the SMEs, when it comes to taxes, there should be certain tax incentives and tax relief for those who are in business, particularly the startups and the small business owners. They are the future of tomorrow. They needed to be encouraged by government in all ways. In some other climes, there are always tax holidays for 2, 3, or even 5 years for startups and small businesses. There are some other businesses that are not even startup, because when you talk of startup, before now, startup is seen to be businesses that have been existing for a few years, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years. But the new definition of startup could also be that businesses that have been existing for 10 years, but they remain the same. They remain the same. They have not grown. They still remain startup. That's the new definition of a startup. And that is what government is supposed to develop critical strategic policy to be able to hold them to grow. And this has to go with a lot of incentives, tax incentive, tax holidays, intervention in form of intervention fund, intervention in form of capacity building, intervention in form of giving them soft landing when they need certification and other regulations that surrounds their business. You can imagine a regulation saying that a small business owner must now pay 70,000 naira as a minimum salary to workers. So this is a business that is even struggling to pay the business owner itself even 50,000. And you now say whoever is not able to pay by the law will have to face imprisonment. You begin to wonder, what kind of a policy is this? This would not work, and it should not have been promulgated in the first place. These are some of the inconsistencies we're talking about. I believe that if government really wants that kind of policy to work, maybe they have to convert all our secondary school in Nigeria to prison, because we will have it overfilled with those who will not be able to pay the minimum wage. You now begin to wonder, if the small business owners are compelled to pay by law and will go to prison, what happened to government offices of state governments or the subnationals that are unable to pay? Are they going to also face the same penalty? These are some of the issues that we have here in Nigeria that we need to address. And the only and best way to address them is to have strong handshake between the public and the private sector in policy making.
Well, Dr. Femi, you're speaking very strongly, and I can understand you. Of course, you're the president of the Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. So, I mean, you have to foster your interest. I can understand that. But then, something that's just coming is the fact that the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga, has stated in the post on X the highlights of the Federal Executive Council meeting that was held in Abuja, and the FEC approved the recommendations of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms in the Economic Stabilization Plan of the federal government. Now, these new reforms in the nation's tax laws include tax reliefs for companies employing more staff and personal income relief to workers in both public and private sectors earning between 200,000 naira and 400,000 naira. So the relief offers to companies employing more staff a form of incentive by the federal government to encourage companies to employ more persons and engage in expansion projects, improving capacity and then reducing employment. So I'm saying this speaking to the fact that you had said something about 70,000 naira minimum wage. While I do not want to dabble into that conversation so we do not end up in a banter or go back and forth as regards a comparison with what's obtainable in other nations of the world, what do you make out of this tax relief that's offered by the federal government? Because a couple of minutes ago, it felt like you didn't think the government was doing enough to ensure that small business owners, survived some of these economic situations that they find themselves right now. Do you think this is enough? What do you make out of it?
Definitely not. Definitely not. If you say you want to give tax relief to those who employ more, then it's like saying that you want to give incentive to someone who is sick, and the best incentive is to give him a cow. That doesn't work. It is the healthy that can eat cow, that can take whatever thing you give to them. At the moment, most businesses are sick, ailing, and some are dead. About 8% of businesses are dead at the moment. It is when your business is doing well and it is thriving that you can employ more. At the moment, companies are downsizing, not because they wish to, but that's the economic realities of today. So if you want to give incentive, you should even give incentive to those who are ailing, who are dying, who are sick, not to those who are healthy and doing better. Those ones really don't need as much incentive as those who are sick. So when we should be talking of tax incentives, tax relief, tax holidays, and all of that, I think we should be addressing it more to those who are in the nano, micro, and small businesses who are finding it very, very difficult to remain afloat in business. Those are the ones that really need this incentive. And that's what is being done in other climes. In other climes, you see that there are special packages for those who are in small business. Again, also, even when you have some of these policies in paper that are incentives, to access them become a big issue, a very big issue. You discover that bigger companies that are expected to even get this incentive by having some form of tax intervention and tax relief may not get it on time. They have to go through a Herculean process to regularize it, to make it legal before they now begin to enjoy it. So it's a whole lot of bureaucratic bottleneck we have with policies here in Nigeria. I think we need to begin to simplify it with special focus on startups and small businesses. You know that we have a Startup Act. This Startup Act was enacted towards the end of the last administration, Barrah administration, that was expected to focus really on startups and support them with grants, support them with funding, support them with tax holidays, support them with capacity building and all of that. This is in the paper. It has been passed as a law. It's a policy, but it's not in reality. It's not on the street. You don't see startups coming up and getting to access this support that is expected to come through the act. And we would have expected the government should have a platform for people to be able to check out what they are doing. If really we have a startup act and some people are benefiting, we should have maybe a website or a portal or a platform that we can go and really assess and check the veracity and the reality, authenticity of some of these policies. This is not available at the moment. I am not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for the pool of community.
Oh, there seems to be a disconnection there. We'll get back with Dr. Femi Egbesola, once he's reconnected, I think that may just be due to internet connections.
We're talking about power. We're
I
talking
mean,
about
power
internet.
goes off as
And
easily
then
your
it
internet
comes to my
connection
mind.
gets disrupted.
Haven't you done enough?
No.
Haven't you
Internet
done enough?
disruption haven't done enough, but it will do enough on this show because we need to continue the conversation. I understand the pains of Dr. Femi Egbesola being a businessman himself and being the president of Association of Small Business Owners. He must be burdened with many complaints of his members who find it difficult to do business in this time. But as he was making a case for the small business owners, I wanted to tell him about the good news, which Mr. Bayo Nanuga also noted that the Federal Executive Council approved the bill seeking the collaboration of federal and state governments to remove haulage levies, livestock levies, market taxes. So that of market taxes seems to have addressed the removal of market taxes seems to have addressed some of the complaints of Dr. Femi Egbesola. Haulage taxes, livestock levies. For livestock, you have people who are into livestock farming at small scale, and you have those who are into it at large scale. So let's find out what Dr. Egbesola thinks about this.
To me, it's good news. Good news, and I must let you know that we have been having good news like this from time to time, but most time it's always too early to celebrate them. Too early to celebrate them in the sense that most of these good news really do not have the exact or the expected effect, positive effect that we wish it should have. For example, the market tax levy that has now been waived, so to speak, has failed. Government has not been able to collect this market tax over time. It has failed even before there's an official pronouncement for its removal. But even that as it may, I think it's a good thing. I mean, failing is different from legally being relieved from not paying it. So it's a good one, and I feel that in some time in the future, we shall begin to see the good impact of this. And this is some of the things we are expecting government to do. I must let you know that tax committee headed by Dr. Oyedele did a wonderful job. I've been privileged to be part of those that review those recommendations. And if this government adopts that recommendation, even to the 60% of it, the business environment and the business community will be good for it. They've done a lot of good job, which to me is very commendable and is going to ease the doing of business here. What we were waiting for is the acceptance of this, the approval and the implementation of some of these policies. I also did mention during my conversation that for some of these things to work, you need to have also a strong engagement with the key stakeholders, the critical stakeholders. If government is also relieving tax for some sector of the economy that are business owners, the stakeholders should also be part of the process. Should be part of the process, not just hearing it in the newspaper or the social media or in news interviews like this. Yes, I've heard about this before, but there are so many other ones that are coming up in the papers that we just read about it in the papers. I think from ab initio, we should be part of those programs. We should be part of designing it. We should be part of implementing it. Perhaps if we are part of the decision making, maybe we will have also be putting as our priority some sectors even before markets, even before livestock, or perhaps before some of those things that are waived. That is the essence of engagement. So we are looking forward to government engaging critical stakeholders, particularly in the business sector, when it comes to anything that has to do with policy or act that is expected to guide that sector.
Well, we'll be tilting the conversation just a little bit, and we're going to be taking a look at Cybercrime Levy. So the Central Bank of Nigeria announced it will continue implementing its controversial, described by some school of thought as controversial, 0.005% Cybercrime Levy and that measure was introduced to fund cybersecurity infrastructure and combat financial crimes in the digital space. It applies to electronic transactions, sparking a lot of criticisms from the various sectors who argue that it places some sort of additional financial burden on individuals and businesses who are already grappling with economic challenges. Our manufacturer is grappling with this. Let's start from there. I mean, I would want you to speak to what you think about the levy.
Well, we are part of those that consider it controversial. We are part of the critics because we strongly believe this should not happen now. When the economic environment is right, you can keep on taxing people and they'll be able to pay. But when it is not right, taxes may end up breaking businesses. And that's why we are seeing businesses dying in a large number day by day now. One of the reasons is so many taxes. So many taxes. We have some trucks that goes on the road with over 100 different papers. Just one truck. And all of them are direct or indirect. This is not the time for us to begin to tax Nigerians, because when you tax businesses, you end up taxing Nigerians because the business owner will end up passing the buck to the consumer. So you are indirectly taxing Nigerians. This is the time for us to be thinking of how better to support Nigerians. Our welfare, our well-being is critically challenged now, even as citizens in the country. When this came up in May and it was rebuffed by quite a number of us, and the House of Rep decided to annul it or suspend it, we were so happy. But we did not know that our joy was short-lived. That's why I said the other time, even with this other policy, there is not yet time to begin to celebrate. To us, we in totality reject it. We believe that this is not the right time. It may be a right policy, but this is not the right time to implement it. One of the things we are fighting now is insecurity. Insecurity is one of the biggest challenge of manufacturers and the entire business owners. Many of us prefer to export to other countries than to take a product to some part of the country. I don't want to mention names, to some part of the country because they are so volatile and so insecure that we prefer doing businesses outside the country to export at a higher cost. You can imagine that. And government from year to year has been spending billions upon billions, if not trillions, to fight insecurity, and still little or nothing has come out of it. Is it now that it is Nigerians that are already suffering that will now be contributing again to this? It is not even about the name. Whatever name that is given to whatever taxes is being generated now is not accepted by us. And it's, to me, not improving ease of doing business. We should be working on improving ease of doing business. So for us, it's a sad one again. It's for us more or less an insensitive development from the government arm, and we are not just happy about it.
Dr. Egbesola, I want to ask, have you taken a look at the cyber levy, the percentage, what it's now put at?
Of course, yes. I know it's 0.005%. I'm aware. It was formerly 0.5%. But now it is 0.005%. But for us, any form of levy, any form of taxes, any form of increment is to us doing no good. We are just grappling with the new
let's do some mathematics here. So
okay,
if the CBN was to charge 0.5% on all electronic transaction as cybercrime levy, and now it's saying it's going to charge 0.005% on any electronic transaction. Let's say you ought to make a transaction of 20,000 naira. If you were charged 0.5% on a transaction of 20,000 naira, that would be about 100 naira. Now, if you were to be charged 0.005%, that would be 1 naira. Do you think it's negligible? And so, if it's backed by the Cybercrime Prohibition Act, Nigerians should not complain given the reduction.
All right, let's take your mathematics further. If you are looking at 20,000, what if I do a transaction of 200 million? That's a lot of money, because when you're doing a transaction of 200 million and you're charging me like 100,000 naira, that's a lot of money. Again, too, if I also do a transaction of 20,000 and I do a transaction of 20,000 20 times a day, some business owner does transactions up to 40 times a day. They pay as little as 2,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 in multiple times in a day. You look at that figure again. So for us, any further addition in whatever form is rebuffed by us because we are seriously in a very bad shape. And any further burden will harden to our body. So we look forward to the House of Rep and other corporate organizations to also advocate this time against this new tariff. We feel it should not exist. And there's this way we run things in Nigeria. When you succeed to introduce a particular form of levy or taxes or whatever it is that you use to generate money for government, you discover that over time you see it increasing even without your knowledge. So when it is 0.005 down and it is accepted and becomes a law and a norm, you discover that maybe in the next 6 months, it will just be added up a bit and there will be no noise about it. You don't even know. It will go up again a bit and you will not even know until it becomes very uncomfortable. So it is better for us to reject it, have an issue from now, if it is possible, than to begin to contend with it again and again over time and becomes a giant before us, becoming a detriment again to our business.
Thank you so much, Dr. Femi Egbesola, President, Association of Small Business Owners in Nigeria, ASBON. We look forward to more conversations with you. Of course, I'd like to say in hope that we do have a collaboration, partners in progress, and of course, we're looking forward to more worthwhile ventures with you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all you are doing in the business space. I see this also more or less as a public-private dialogue and an advocacy, and I think it is having its effects no matter how big or how small it is having its effects, and we give you all the thanks for what you are doing. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and be rest assured that I'm always ever ready to be part of your laudable programs and TV interviews anytime, any day.
Thank you. Blessing.
Yes.
Something that bothers me is with all of the cybercrime levies and all of the restrictions, would you say that cybercrime has reduced?
I wouldn't say it has. You know, my concern more is with the approach. So when cybercrime is committed or some form of fraud has happened on your account and you're trying to even trace it, the frustration that you're greeted with at the bank.
The
bureaucracy, and sometimes some information is withheld. So you have to go through
the court to get an
affidavit, getting some documents, getting some of permissions for them to grant you information on your own account. So if it was even easy when fraud is committed on account and you say, oh, even without the levy, you offer the needed assistance, you give the information. Imagine someone gets into your account and is able, or maybe somebody gets a hold of some of your information.
There's something that used to, let me help you. There's something that happens. People send money into your account and in splits of seconds, it moves again.
Yes.
And you begin to wonder how.
Yes.
A huge sum comes in, it stays for maybe some minutes, hours. But by the time you're able to want to find out what's going on, it's been moved again. And then you wonder, how is that possible? Why isn't there a back check of some sort? So I've had such a personal experience, or it was my dad, who money was sent into his account and then it was moved. And it was a situation of a financial fraud. But then the realization that he did not initiate the move, he did not initiate the order transfer, the moving out, that what was the word now? That extricated him from whatever, absolved him whatever allegations that there were. So what systems do we even have in place? You would expect that these levies, should be geared towards technological development to strengthen the firewall or the security of our financial system.
I understand the financial burden. It could be over a long time, or when you make large transactions, it depends on the volume of your transaction. But I think Nigerians would not have objected to it if they had some assurance or going by experience, it's been that when there are issues of cybercrime and when you happen to be the victim, the bank offers you the assistance without you spending more, without you having to go through a lot of stress and some bureaucratic bottleneck before it's eventually resolved. Sometimes you just left to your fate and they tell you, oh, perhaps your information must have been compromised, and the bank takes no responsibility for any of it. You're left to just bear the consequence of what has happened. So if the bank can actually be seen to do so much more or more than they're doing actually to protect consumers, then people would think maybe this levy will go into doing more, acquiring more software or getting better technology to tackle cybercrime. That's just us thinking that maybe this bank can do more to convince people that this is actually needed at this point in time. Well, we'll wait to see how it happens. It was suspended for some months, but the CBN says they are reintroducing it. Will it be fought by some other associations? What would the National Assembly say about this? It's just unfolding. We'll get more information as the drama unfolds. I'm Blessing Eichie. Many thanks for being a part of the show by watching. You can do more by dropping a comment. Let us know what you think. What are your thoughts on the issues discussed today? Like our page, follow as well, and comment. I'll see you again. Bye.
Well, our heart goes out to the people of Borno State who are battling with flooding. And of course, as the contributions, donations continue to pour in, I hear about a certain percentage of coming to the state government. We hope that some succor comes to residents and indigenes of Borno, and that the government is able to find a way or figure out a way to be able to quell the impact of the flood, which I'm certain is devastating. On behalf of everyone over here, thank you so much for joining us on Early Exchange. Market Insight is up at 11. My name is Temple Barrah. Do have a lovely day.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.